Hello, and welcome to my dining room. This is episode 22 of the Live and Learn Knitting Podcast. Today is Monday, July 15th, 2024. My name is Anne, or Annie, and I live on the banks of the Mississippi River in western Wisconsin. And this podcast is about what I'm doing in the world of fiber arts. Sometimes we will talk about more than just knitting, but primarily I'm still focused on knitting because as you can see, my loom right now is Plant Stand. This is just one of several looms that I have, and sadly, it is not being used right now. So eventually, I really hoped that I would just get even a simple project put on there by the end of this summer, because I enjoy weaving. So let's hope that happens. Let's make that happen, okay? There's actually even another loom. This is a tapestry loom that I also would like to get a project put on. And here behind me, this is a bolt, a roll of fabric that I got. It's kind of thin, but I think it's still upholstery fabric. It is, and you can see that it's crafted there it is, Waverly. It's, made in the USA, Waverly. Look at that beautiful sage green. This pattern is called Argyle. I really like it. This was a steal at the local thrift store. $5 for that whole bolt. So I'm gonna do something with that, and I have a wing chair that desperately needs to be reupholstered. I don't have the skill set to do that, but I do have fabric now that I could take somewhere. I had a quote once from someone who said, well, if you bring your fabric, it's this much. If you buy fabric from me, it's this much. So I should reinvestigate that option and get that chair taken care of. But this might sit here for a while. Anyway, on with what we really want to talk about today. First of all, thank you to all the viewers, all the new subscribers. There were a few more this last episode, and I really appreciate that. Here comes George. I think he's gonna curl up maybe. And I put a pad down because he was sitting on my show notes before, so I think he's gonna settle in. Otherwise, he's gonna just take over the whole show. We'll see. So I appreciate all the subscribers, all the wonderful comments on the last episode. So let me update you on what I talked about last time, which was the infamous red sweater and the tale of two sweaters. Since last episode, and just this weekend, in fact, Elaine, my cousin, and her daughter Lauren, who the sweater is for, they came here, which I thought they might because we had our town festival, and they usually do come to town for that. And so we actually, after the episode, I thought about it, and I thought, they should watch that episode, and that'll kind of give them an explanation of what's happened to the sweater project in these many years, 6 years in the making, and why is it taking me so long. So I sent Elaine and Lauren a link to the last episode, and our emails crossed, and Elaine said, we're coming to town. I want to, hopefully we can get together. And in 6 years, Lauren's email had changed. So she did find out about it, though. And Elaine watched a little bit of it, but they didn't know the whole story. So we had a wonderful visit on Saturday afternoon. It was really good to catch up. Like I said, Elaine and Lauren, they both are crafty people. They sew a lot, they quilt, they make things. Lauren her minor in college was graphic design, so she's a very creative person. I know she likes to do needle felting, and she's very good at sculptural felting. I've seen some of her work, and it's amazing to me. So they understand the creative process and how long projects can take. It shouldn't have taken that long. But we had a fitting of both sweaters, actually. And, yep, took measurements of what I need to do as far as finishing the sleeve length, finishing the body length, and, then it's just a matter of putting on the ribbings, and it's done. So it's really getting close. And it looked really good on Lauren. I was so happy it did. It fit her well. We talked about the superwash yarn situation and just, kind of let's see how much it grows. I was really hesitant because the arm measurement, when she said where she wanted it, she wanted the sleeve to end like down here, which that's fine. If that's what she wants, that's fine. But I'm worried that the superwash is going to grow that far. So I might stop a bit sooner and see how much it grows. And, of course, ribbing, cuff, that can always be, especially since it's tapped down, always be taken off and adjusted if it's too long or added to if it's too short. So I'm not too concerned about that. So I feel a lot more positive about it, which is good. I think some of the angst, the anxiousness of it, the fear of the unknown has evaporated now. So that project's in the home stretch. Hooray. And on to better things. Not better things, just more. On to more things. So the topic for today is Advent your knitting. Advent your knitting. Advent. It's Christmas in July, which I've never really bought into that idea, that concept. As I know some families, especially here in the Midwest, if they have a family reunion, like I used to have some next door neighbors that had a big family reunion every summer because that's when everyone could get together, and they had activities planned for every day. And, it was one of these things where they all had t-shirts and, it was a big, almost a conference for this family. And so one of the days was a Christmas in July thing where they did gift exchanges and played, it was their theme for the day. I guess that's what it's, for. If you can't get together in the winter because of the weather or distance, it's hard to travel in the wintertime in the U.S. sometimes. So I understand that ease of getting together in the summer. But that is partly why I'm wearing what I'm wearing, because, you don't always wear cowls with sundresses, do you? No. It's very hot and humid here this weekend, and we had not horrible, but we had extensive storms on Saturday night. A lot of hail, a lot of wind. I had a big limb come down in the yard, and over 3¼ inches of rain on Saturday, more today. So yeah, high heat and humidity. A good friend helped clean up the limb and work on some other trees. It was good. But anyway, yes, cowls. A cowl in the summertime. So I'll stand up and show you this. This is an Advent project that I designed using, and I'll take it off and show you, because it doesn't really go with this sundress, does it? The air conditioning isn't on that high that I need it, but I designed this to use a set of the Sweet Georgia Advent kit from 2020. I was gifted this kit, and it had in it 12 mini skeins and directions. I thought it was knit and crochet and weaving, but apparently it was 2 different knitting patterns and then a weaving pattern in it. And those were your options. And so with this kit for 2020, you could see what yarn you were getting. You could see the colors, and you knew if you were getting like warm colors or cool colors. They had two color options. So the mystery was in the directions for the item. That was the Advent mystery. And you know, I've said it before in other episodes, I'm not a fan of the mystery knit-alongs, make-alongs, because I don't want to put that much time into something that I'm not sure how it's going to turn out or what is the process. I'm not a big fan of lace knitting. I will do it, and I've done it and made some very nice lacy things, but I really have to be in the mood and want to do it. And I don't like all kinds of lace. I only like some kinds. Same with cables. I love to make cables. I do. But some cables are more appealing to me than others. So, you know, I was just very leery of what these directions might be, and just I didn't want to play the Advent game. But I felt, because this was a gift, and it was not an inexpensive gift. I believe that in 2020, those Advent kits from Sweet Georgia retailed for like $160. And today in 2024, you know, we can see a range of Advent kits from different yarn suppliers, whether they're indie dyers or, you know, larger manufacturers. They can range from, oh yeah, over $100 up to, hit the window, up to $300 for some of them. That's a big outlay for the unknown. And I did feel a bit pressured to not just put this kit on a shelf and, you know, have it collect dust, and that I should use it sooner rather than later. I got it in November for my birthday, and I did not do it over Advent, like I said, but it sat there, and I was kind of, I guess, in the back of my head thinking, well, what could I do with it? And I initially was going to make the Crown Wools scarf. I think that's a Casapinka pattern. I had seen someone else make it, and I admired it. And I thought, well, that would be an idea of just, you know, changing, like it's sort of a parallelogram shape. And, you know, just have each color do something different, like a different texture. I like texture patterns. Do a different texture pattern with each color going up. And I might have even started that idea, and it wasn't speaking to me. It wasn't the thing. So I set that aside again. And in January, I saw a motif for similar to this, the window pane. Not quite exactly this, but similar. So I got out some graph paper, and I charted out my version of this window pane motif, and how would I do that. So I liked that idea. So what I did was I laid out my 12 mini skeins from light to dark. And these, you can see that the colors shift here from purples, and then it gets blue purple and blue green, and, you know, and goes into this green gray, blue green family. Okay, so I laid everything out from darkest to lightest, and like the purples, you know, all the dark purples to the dark blues, dark greens, and then all of the, you know, and then lighter shades, the lighter purples to, there's sort of a bit of a medium range, but not a lot of medium. So I did that, and then I took and alternated the light and like put the darkest light in between the dark, the two darks, and kind of shifted that way and moved around a little bit. And it's funny, I thought I took a photo of my color choices, but I didn't. I did label them all. I put little tags on saying this is color number 1, this is color number 2, up, all the way through to 12. So that I did like 1 dark, 1 light, 2 dark, 2 light, so that I had them organized in a color sequence that I thought was pleasing. And then I started knitting, and I knew I did a provisional cast on at this edge, and I did 2 rounds of this dark color, and then I started my window pane motif, and alternated dark light, and I ended with 1 round of dark. And I wanted to have that differentiation between, I could have just kept going windows all the way up, but I liked having this little line, demarcation line. So I did dark light, then the next, and you can see, so this is 1 repeat of the motif. And then for the next one, I changed the dark shade to the next dark in the sequence, but I kept the light shade the same. And it's really interesting, and I think it was after I made this, after I took a color theory class online, and they talked about, there was one lesson where we did, we had a bunch of the same colors, and you can see when you put them next to each other how they bounce and play off of each other, and how the values, the hues in that can actually change depending on what they're next to, which was fascinating. So I changed the next background. I changed the dark color. Here, the dark color is the same, but I went to the next light shade, light color, and so on. So this is the light, changed to a new dark, changed the light to the next background color, or the next light shade, which you can see there's quite a bit of a difference between this light and this light, but it's still, a nice contrast between the background. Now here it's a little more similar. It was just very interesting. And then one thing that I did was that after I did a full repeat of, say this light color, or this light color, I weighed what I had left. I think I weighed it beforehand, and these were mini skeins. There were 12. They weighed about 20 grams a piece. So I weighed it after to see how much I used up in this, and I realized, because my initial idea was to do all this sequence once and then go the opposite way back until I ran out of yarn. And I realized that I would not have enough to do a full repeat on the way back. So as I'm working this, I thought, I need a plan B then. What am I going to do for the second half of these color combinations? Because I'm not going to be able to make this again. I could do, half a row of the repeat, but I didn't really want to do that. I thought, well, all right. And I have seen this on different shawls, or, a lot of different projects where all of a sudden they just switch and do something else. So I decided, and you could see that here I am reversing the colors, but I decided to go with these mini triangles in, the 2 different directions. So kind of bust up the windows and do that. And this motif, I thought I wrote it down. I wrote it down somewhere, maybe. This repeat was 16 rounds, I believe. And 1 row repeat of mini triangles is 6 rounds. So 12 rounds for like the opposite, you know, the mirror image of each other. So less. And what I actually did was I didn't do, you know, this is very specific, that it was going to be 16 rounds and 16 rounds and you're done with that color. Here, since I'm on the home stretch, I decided that I would work the colors, and I kept weighing them after I finished like one of these triangle motifs. I weighed before and then I weighed after, and it's like, okay, that took whatever it was, 3 grams, 2 grams, you know. And so I kept weighing the balls, and when I got to the point where I wouldn't be able to complete a triangle motif with, you know, like, oh, you only have 2 grams left and you need 3. So then I cut that yarn and just went to the next yarn. If that was a dark yarn, then I went to the next dark. Or if it was a light, I went to the next light. And so that's why some of this changes at a different amount of repeats than they're not all the same number of repeats. So it went back to the end, and then I had knit 1 round of the solid color again at the top, and I just decided at the outset that I would have this visible seam, you know, of start and stop. So I grafted I took out the provisional, put this all on the needles, and then grafted this together. So there was 1 round of grafting. So 2 rounds to begin with, 1 round at the end, and then 1 round of grafting. So that's a 4-row demarcation between the beginning and the end. And actually I'm fine with that. And you know, it's easy to put that in the back. And look at that. Have some on each side. It's fine. This is not a Mobius. I did one thing with this. I put in 1 stitch of, and I used, I believe, the dark shade every time. I did one, added a stitch for a seam, for a side seam, and so I slipped that every other round to make a phony seam. And in hindsight, I think that was unnecessary. There you can kind of see the phony seam. I think it was unnecessary because when you're carrying the yarns, that phony, like if this had just been all stockinette stripes, that phony seam would have been very useful, very necessary. But because you're carrying yarns, you've got a float going across where that phony seam is. And I think it sort of negates the usefulness of the seam. Because in some, like right there, yeah, it's very sharp and crisp, a crisp edge. But over here, where it's more, and maybe it has to do with this being at this pattern having angles and this pattern not having any angles to it. But you can see it kind of like this, it didn't fold nicely on that phony seam. The phony seam is kind of, you know, going to this side instead of staying right in the middle. And it's not necessarily a blocking issue. Maybe it is. Maybe I'm just not that skilled of a blocker. But it just, like there, it just actually kind of, the phony seam sort of disappears because of the yarn floats, the carries. And even there, it's a little more. So it was very fiddly and tedious to try and block that out to where it should have been. So I think it was unnecessary. In hindsight, if I make another one of these, and I am tempted to, I would leave that phony seam out. So that's what I did with my Advent kit, my Advent minis. And like I said, this was from Sweet Georgia. And it was made during the pandemic, you know, January. I started it in January 2021. And I believe I finished it. I didn't put down the finish date here, which is in my Ravelry notes. But in 2021, Vesterheim Norwegian Heritage Museum in Decorah, Iowa, had a members art exhibit. And I'm a member there, and so they were calling for submissions, and the theme had to be Nordic inspired. And they take fiber arts, they take weaving, knitting, any kind of fiber art. They take painting. It was anything, but it had to be Nordic inspired, and the theme was, I think it was home from home. And to just, how does what you have connect to home, being at home during the pandemic, being, what's our home like? And so the window panes, I did a lot, and I do a lot of walking around town. And I said in my entry that this is reminiscent of the windows, that you see when you're out walking on my solitary walks. And they're solitary whether there's a pandemic or not, usually. It's just me. But yeah, seeing into the windows of the houses, as I'm walking. And then the triangles reminded me of our Central Park, where we were doing, I don't know if we'd started it yet or not, but we would do our plein air knitting in Central Park we started that during the pandemic. And Central Park, in my town, it's one block, and there are, sidewalks that go in from every corner to a center bandstand. So there's, triangle shapes if you look at that from an aerial view. And so these are reminiscent of the triangle shapes of our Central Park. So that was that. And it got accepted into the show. And it was on display at Vesterheim in Decorah. And I was very proud of that, that's something I created. And it, luckily, it fit the category, the brief that they had given. And I thought it fit very well because, all of these kind of motifs are Nordic inspired for sure. Nordic knitting is full of color work and, in the mittens and in the sweaters and that. I have a little book called, is it Swedish Mittens? It's just a tiny little book, and I should have pulled that out. It's one that I lose a lot because it is so small, but it's just page after page of, color work mittens. And I do have the big Selbu mitten book, which has like over 500 motifs in it. Not all geometric, a lot of them are stylized, the flowers and the snowflakes and that, but I think that other one is the Swedish mitten book, and the patterns are a bit more geometric. So anyway, that's what I did with my Advent kit, and I really enjoyed. And I will say, I'm going to take my headband off. I used up, like I say, as much yarn as I could from that kit. I did have some leftovers, not much. Some of the colors only had very small amounts left, few yards left, and some had a few more. So this was as big as I could make this. And I didn't, plan ahead like, if I had made it one motif narrower, it would have been longer. So it sits, comes down to here. It sits nicely under a coat and yet still can snug up on my neck. I can wear it, up on my head like that and still snug it up under my coat. So a little babushka action going on. And the only thing is that, like, if I want to double it, It works. It does work. It's a bit close. It's a bit snug on the neck. And I have washed and blocked this at least once. I think twice, though. I think the initial washing and blocking, and then I think I did it once more before I sent it to Decora for display, but maybe not since then. And it is superwash wool. It's merino. It's an 80-20. It's the Sweet Georgia Tough Love sock base. So I think that's 80% merino and 20% nylon. So it's superwash, so it should relax, like we talked about in the last episode. It should just, bleh. And maybe it has, but it's just a little short, and I will maybe try to block it out a little so that it can grow a little bit and not be so snug around my neck. And I don't like cowls that are just very loose and floppy and open, higher up, if that makes any sense. Like one to be like this. That doesn't keep my neck warm. But this is just a tiny tad too snug when I double it around my neck. So I do wear it more like just like that, and it'll stay under a coat. So I've had some people say, oh, this is, one of my knitting friends, Kathy, said that she thinks this is the best use of an Advent kit she's ever seen. Thank you, Kathy. I appreciate that compliment. And someone asked me, well, would you write the pattern up? And that's a possibility, although even to try and recreate this so that I could write the pattern up and, have it be this colorful, this took 12 colors of yarn. And to buy 12 colors of yarn to recreate this would, if you're buying the Sweet Georgia, that sock yarn is $30 a skein. Times 12? That's $360 to make this. Now you could make, well, at least probably 3 of them, maybe 4, you could make a bunch, but yeah, so I'd have to find sets of minis, and they do make, Sweet Georgia makes mini skein sets, but not necessarily in all of these same colors. So, and I'm not sure how often they change their colors, like if these colors are available all the time, or if I'd have to find new colors. And, could I find, I don't mind Sweet Georgia, but what about somebody else? What about like Utopia? Catherine with her Ridge fingering weight. Could I find 12 colors in that would work for this? Perhaps. And maybe I'll investigate that and try and write something up. Maybe I'd use more colors. It'd be something to think about, wouldn't it? But it would have to probably be made up. And the pattern, you could use anything and just, come up with any color combinations that are pleasing. So maybe I'll write this up. I did enjoy making it, and I think others would enjoy making it. It's simple color work. It's knit in the round, so it's very, I want to say easy knitting if you have experience with color work at all, and if not, this is probably a good place to start because there's no shaping involved. So we'll see, but that's my experience with an Advent kit. And the next thing I want to talk about with Advent kits is, do you buy them? They say Advent kits, and Advent is connected a lot with the Christian holiday of Christmas. But I think their Advent kits are getting marketed more, of course, to be more inclusive. Basically it's December. You can have an Advent kit leading up to solstice. You can have an Advent kit, if you celebrate Kwanzaa. It's the advent of whatever you celebrate in the wintertime. Hanukkah, now this had 12 mini skeins. For Hanukkah, you could divide that up and have actually a couple extra. You'd have 4 extra. How would you? So like one day you'd have 2, one day you'd have 1, and through the 8 nights of Hanukkah. That would be kind of fun. So adapt an Advent kit to any holiday you want, and there are so many Advent kits out there. They're, for knitting, for eating, all the food, chocolate and wine and cheese, even, all kinds of snacks and treats and that. Puzzles. I've seen Amy Beth on the Fat Squirrel Speaks talks about the puzzle Advent kits. And you can, dog treats, cat toys, all kinds, coffees, different coffees, teas is a big one, because those little tea bags they make a nice size, nice thing for Advent. Well, and that's another thing about the Sweet Georgia kit. So it came with the mini skeins, and it came with the pattern instructions. Every day you had a little square card, and that had your instructions on it for the day. So I don't want to say they're gimmick, but they're extras for this kit, where you got a string, and I don't know if it was a waxed cotton or what it was, but you got a small string that you were supposed to hang up, and then you got mini clip clothespins, and you were supposed to clip all of these cards to this string and have that hanging, and then, pull your card down for the day, open it, do your directions. And then they also had in there 3 small extra little gifts that you were supposed to open. And I don't know if it told on the card, since I didn't follow their directions for any of that. I don't know if it told on the cards, like, okay, today is day such and such, open little gift, whichever one, the first one, the second one, the third one. So I opened those little gifts all at once, I think. I was not impressed with them. I'm not even sure what their purpose was. They were little charm things, and I guess you could put them on a jump ring and make it be like a progress keeper type charm, or a stitch marker type charm, or hang it on the tree as a mini ornament. But they were, like, I think one was a ball of yarn, and I don't even remember what the other 2 were. They were plastic, and they kind of looked very not nice. I put them in a donation box. Yeah, they're gone. So that was unfortunate, I think. Other kits have, different little things. But I think they're all very expensive. And with as much yarn and as I have, and even, everything, tea, it's just the idea of opening a little something every day. But you're paying for all of that extra packaging and extra work that it takes to assemble a kit like that. Because tying up, winding up all these mini skeins, that takes extra work for the company. Packaging up all the little, if it's in boxes or bags, or wrapped up, all of that takes extra work and extra materials. And think about all the waste, because are you keeping all of that extra packaging? Chances are no. Can you reuse it? Chances are no. Sometimes, yes. Sometimes if they're in those really fancy little gift boxes and it all comes then in a bigger gift box, you could open that, empty the box, and reuse that box to make your own Advent kit for the next year or give it away to somebody. But are you going to do that? Maybe. If you're really creative and inspired to do that, maybe. Maybe not. So they have, it can be a mixed blessing, I think, to buy one. It's an expense. You could ask for it for a gift, sure, but it's an expense. It's a big expense. And, think about all of that extra product that goes into it that we maybe don't need. So there are some frugal alternatives to Advent kits. And you know me, I am all about the frugal lifestyle here. Last year, Rebecca Clow, Creabea Knits, she did a scrappy Advent swap. And I'm sure there are others. If you probably put us, into Google search, and maybe you're not right now, but maybe more towards fall. And I can't remember when she announced it. I want to say November, but I have to go back and look at her podcasts when she announced this in her podcast. But she coordinated a scrappy Advent swap because she kind of feels the same way, that they're very expensive. And we all have leftovers. We all have, bits and pieces in that we could put together one for ourselves. And I think Andrea Mowry last year talked about that with spinning. Got me excited, and I actually did that in August. I went up and pulled out a bunch of colors of merino fiber that I had and, put them together. And then I just pulled bits and pieces and made little snowballs and wrapped them up in tissue paper, snowballs of roving, and weighed them out. So they were roughly the same amount of grams of fiber, and wrapped them up in tissue paper in August and put them in a bag. And I didn't number them because I thought I would just, reach into the bag, pick one, open it up, spin it. The next day spin some more. I spun one day of that. It was fun. It was fun to open on that first day, but at that time of year, I kind of get overwhelmed with a lot of things to do. Even though I don't really celebrate that much anymore. I'm here by myself. Family, it's at this advanced stage of life. That's not, where I'm at right now. I don't celebrate too much, and which is a good thing. It's more of a relaxing lifestyle, thank goodness, But I can't imagine people with big families or small families even that, or big social groups that just have all of these obligations around the holiday time. Overwhelming. So I'm, really happy to have a quiet solstice Advent time of year, December, and I like it when things quiet down. So, but I still didn't have time to do my spinning every day, it wasn't working out. So that I could pick that up again this year and try again with that Advent project, because everything's all still wrapped up and in the bag except for 1 day or 2 days. So, but that's a thing to try. Like right now, go to your stash, whether it's yarn or fabric or embroidery floss, and go to your stash and pull out 24 little bits and package them up in a fun way. And that doesn't mean having to go out and buy fancy little boxes or gift bags or anything like that. That can be just like I did tissue paper that I had already on hand, and it was Christmas tissue paper that I thought maybe I wouldn't use for any other reason. So you can do a DIY type of an Advent kit for yourself. And I do have, if you look on Ravelry for Advent knitting, there are a lot of patterns to use these mini skeins and make projects There's a pair of Advent socks. There's an Advent Christmas stocking. There are, countless. And I thought it would be nice to like take and I'm thinking a gray, like a light or a medium gray, use that as a background color, and then do stripes of a color every day, or a little, color work pattern every day with gray as the main color, and then, something bright, and have that be a scarf or socks, or could be a long hat, could be a Musselboro hat with that kind of patterning to it, or yeah, just something stripy, easy, easy, relaxing. It shouldn't be difficult. It shouldn't be overwhelming. So there's a lot of ideas out there, and I will say, and I'm sorry, this is getting longer than I intended. I have an account on Pinterest, but I've never looked at Pinterest because I just think it would overwhelm me. Sometimes if I'm searching, Pinterest will open up by accident, and I'm like, no, I can't, because it's just, I don't want to fall down that rabbit hole. Ravelry is a big enough rabbit hole for me, just Google searching is a big enough rabbit hole. So there's creative ideas out there everywhere if you want to try and make your own Advent kit. And I'm wondering if you do. But Rebecca last year coordinated this scrappy Advent swap, and it was so much fun. I did sign up for it, and you had your choice of whether you wanted a 24-day swap or a 12-day swap, like, the 12 days of Christmas kind of thing, and whether you wanted fingering weight yarn or DK yarn. I think those were the only criteria. I'd have to look back. And I think also maybe, were you willing to send overseas, or do you want to stay within your country? And I don't think she realized how she got a response, I think, of over 700 people signing up for that scrappy swap. And she had a heck of a process to match everybody up so that they, so that the characteristics of what they signed up for matched with another person, and they could swap. And I didn't hear how that all turned out. I had a great swap partner, Sandra from Rhode Island, and we were following each other on Instagram, so I could kind of get an idea of what she liked and what kind of projects she made, and vice versa. And I really had fun putting together mini skeins for her. And, it was just stash yarns. And I added a couple full skeins. I think, like 100, it might have been 2, 50-gram balls of sock yarn. So, and then these minis, that's 1 or 2, I can't remember for sure. But enough to make a pair of socks and then use the minis as contrast, if that's what she wanted to do, or a scarf, or a project. So there was a background plus all the accents. And then I did buy some treats to put in. Just small things, small chocolates and small cookies. They were delicious because I got enough, that I could have some as well. That was my Advent to me, was the chocolates. They were good, very good, fancy, so that was the fancy part. And then as far as the packaging, to me, she used just like a newsprint type, plain newsprint type paper, that sort of thing, and had everything wrapped up, and she used raffia to tie it up, and stickers and that on there with the numbers on it, and they were all really cute, like little sausage rolls, or tied up little packages, and they were cute. And I decided something reusable. So I had a piece of fabric that was snowflakes on it, with sparkly, it was blue with snowflakes and sparkles on it, and there was just enough to cut 12 little drawstring bags and sew them up. And it sounds like a lot of extra work. It didn't take that long at all because, you just cut them out all the same, sew them, put the drawstrings in, and yeah, it, took an afternoon maybe to do that. And then I actually found little snowflake numbers online, and so I printed those out on cardstock, blue cardstock, and attached those to the bags. And it was so much fun to put that together for someone else. I enjoyed that a lot. And, yeah, so if you want to participate, try and find a Google frugal Advent swap and see what comes up. Do you have any suggestions, for swaps like that or other Advent ideas? Do you do it? Do you not do it? What do you like about it? I want to hear some feedback. If we get a lot of information on this, I might talk about it again in another episode. We've got time to think about it and plan. Is it something we should pursue? I think, planning something like that and overseeing it is a lot of work. I am not sure I have maybe because this is kind of a small group of followers, we could do it. I don't know. I'm always leery of it because I think if it falls apart for whatever reason, I've been in swaps for bags in the past, knitted bags. This was through a blog that I followed. And I think I did 3 rounds of it. And one of the rounds, it completely fell apart and I didn't get one. And that was disappointing. And actually the moderator of the group, she sent me a bag. She did. But that was a lot of extra work on her part to make another bag for someone. So, there's a lot of responsibility to running those kinds of swaps. I am not sure if I want to do that or not. If there's a lot of interest, maybe, but it can fall apart and then you're disappointed. And I don't want people to be disappointed. So, ideas, suggestions. What would you do? What's your experience? Talk to me. You can either leave comments below or you can email me at livelearnknit@gmail.com. And, if you've got a longer, you want to write it all out, idea of what to do, or your experiences, and we'll talk about it again next time. It's hard that this discussion is always one way, and you're probably out there going, stop, enough already. We don't do this. I don't want to hear about it. Or, I've done it every year and I love it. And yeah, it's great. So it's hard to know what everybody thinks of them. So I would like to know. I can see where, you can say, well, this is a treat I give myself. And I'm worth it. And that's true. We are worth it. But it can also be a big, like with that kit that I got, it felt like a big obligation to do something with it and not have it just sit there because it was expensive and it was really too much, it was too overwhelming for me. But I made the best of it, I think. So in that way, it was good. It pushed me to be creative, and I appreciate that very much. So I think that's all I have to talk about this. Oh, one little bit of living I will end with, because this is getting to be an hour long. Remember I said a few episodes ago, my mom always said, don't wreck yourself for summer. I am having a hard time, Mom, I tell you. Last Tuesday, I made this bonehead move, and I have this wonderful bike. It's a Schwinn, like beach cruiser type bike, you know, big, not the fat tire bike, but big, bigger tires, just your 1950s looking Schwinn. Pink. It's the prettiest bike I've ever owned. And I have it all. I have a nice little handmade basket on the front, and I just got a new saddlebag on the back this year that's also pink, and I have pink lights that go around the spokes for nighttime. It's fancy, fun bike. And everybody in town knows that bike and knows that here comes Ann and her pink bike. And I mean, I get kids saying, "Oh, I like your bike." That's amazing, you know, when kids like something and will tell me that they like it. I love that. I love it. So I was on my bike and I was just barely even moving, and I was trying to stop to talk to a friend, and it's just a coaster brake. There's no handbrakes, you know, so I was braking, I was stopping, and I was going down a bit of a hill, a slope, and trying to get off the bike, and it kept moving. And so then I was trying to use my feet to stop and get off the ground, and everything got all tangled up together, and we kind of flipped around the bike, and we you know, yeah, we kept moving, and we flipped around, and then I fell over. The bike fell over. And of course, my friend Sue was like, "Are you okay? Are you okay?" And I'm like, "Oh, yeah. And I have no idea if I'm okay. I could have broken a hip. I don't know. But oh yeah, I'm okay. Is the basket okay? Did I smash the basket?" That was what I was worried about, you know. Oh, that handmade basket. Oh, the basket was fine. I broke the bike's fall. The bike was not fine, because when Sue helped me get up, you know, it was like I and the bike had to stand up at the same time because we were all intertangled together. And the last thing to hit the ground was my broken elbow. No. So yeah, that was actually the least hurt thing. So we got everything stood up, and Sue said, "Well, I'll give you a ride home." And I said, No, that's okay. And then I realized that the handlebars were pointing forward, but the wheel was pointing this way, left. So if I wanted to turn, you know, have the wheel go straight, the handlebars were like this, and I don't think that would have been very comfortable to ride home. So I said, "Okay, fine, you can give me a ride home." So we put the bike in the back of her car, and I could feel my, you know, legs were hurting, and I thought, "Oh, I'm going to have some bruises. My knee hurt." I landed on my knee, the right knee this time, and the left knee was just getting to feel better. So I got home, and I realized that on my lower calf, I had this huge, scary hematoma. It just swelled, and it was like this hard lump of iron sticking out of, I mean, that's what it felt like, iron, you know, bulging out of my leg. And it scared me. I've never had anything like that before. So there were multiple bruises, and yeah, so I went in the next day to see the doctor. And she did have my knee x-rayed. I did not break my kneecap. Hooray! But these bruises are very painful, and they all did swell up and have hard lumps to them, and not that bad. The leg was the worst, but there was one that in the pelvic area where the bike seat would be. Horrible looking bruise. I didn't even see it till the next day, and I didn't even realize even until the day after that it's actually, there was a hard lump there too. So it's like, oh my gosh. And I was practically standing still. You know, I was not even moving really on this bicycle. So maybe I should have been. Maybe I just should have kept going, "Hi, Sue," and just, you know, not even stopped to try to talk to her. Live and learn. So I haven't been on my bike since. I did get it fixed. I had to order a set of tools to have the right size hex key to fix the handlebars, which is good because now I have a new set of tools, and I even was able then to fix the kickstand, which had been loose to begin with, you know. So that is a small bonus out of being injured. Again, I'm tired of falling down. I don't want to fall down anymore. I hurt. I really have been taking it easy this last week and not doing as much. I tried the next day walking down the hill to go for our park knitting, and it hurt to walk down the hill. So I've been driving to the pool. The doc said I could get back on my bike this morning, but my body said, no, you can't. Not yet. My leg still hurts, and I'm really worried about knocking that bruise into something because I can barely touch it, and it needs to calm down a bit more. So maybe Wednesday I will get it back on my bike. We'll see. I want to take it around here on the flat and just make sure that it is working again and that it starts and stops okay. You know, it's not an e-bike. This is a me bike. I pedal this bike. It's old school and I like it that way. But I want to make sure that it's functioning before I try and take it down the hill. I live on the top of a hill. You know, to go anywhere else in town, I have to go down the hill. And I don't want to be careening down the hill and go, I have no brakes, or the chain's going to fall off, or, you know, something bad like that. So, yeah. Little by little, I'll get back on it. But don't wreck yourself for summer, people. Come on. But go out and have fun. My doctor was not at all upset with me for wrecking myself. She's like, well, at least you're out doing stuff. That's great. You know, you've lost 8 pounds. That's great. You know, keep going. So, yeah. Just a small setback. More time for knitting with my leg up on a pillow, and yeah, painkillers kicking in. So, yes. So that's all the living, all the learning, all the knitting, fun projects. We'll talk more next time. We might continue this topic a bit, or maybe I've exhausted it. Tell me. I don't want to hear any more about Advent, you know, or yeah, let's keep talking. Let me know what you think, and we'll go from there. And keep on with your summer knitting, with your summer plans, all the good things that are happening now. We have to make the good things happen, right? Because if we don't, what are we left with? Not much. So take care and enjoy, and be well, for sure. Don't wreck yourself. Thank you.